Timothy 3, and we're going to read verses 5 to 6. 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verses 5 to 6. Let's read.
1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 5. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the congregation of Elohim? Verse 6. Not a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil.
All right, so in verse 5 it says, for Adam, or man or woman, does not know their position in their household, what their role is that Yahweh gave them, how can he take care of the congregation of Elohim? How can he or she be an example to the congregation of Elohim? The answer is they can't. He said, not a novice. So this is a novice, and we had looked at the definition of the novice, which we're going to give again. But Yahweh said, don't be a novice, because a novice is lifted up with pride. And that pride means a novice leans to his own understanding rather than Yahweh's understanding. So he falls into the deception of the enemy, of Yah's enemy. Go to Acts the 10th chapter. Acts the 10th chapter. So Yahweh defines a novice as being a person inexperienced, or it could be a newly baptized person. That's a novice, is new to belief in Yahweh. We're going to Acts 10. A person can be a novice who's inexperienced in applying Yahweh's beliefs to people and situations. And a novice can be a person who delays or alters Yahweh's beliefs in applying them to people. So you have different types of novices. One is the newly baptized person, doesn't know the word and new to what Yahweh said should be. Then there's a person that is inexperienced or still practicing how to apply Yahweh's beliefs. But then there's another type of novice who procrastinates and delays or alters Yahweh's beliefs when he or she applies them. Acts the 10th chapter, and we want to read verses 34 to 35. But the point is that Yah said in order to take care of his congregation, a person should not be a novice. And there is the phase that we all went through when we first came into the truth, and there was a period of time when we didn't know what certain scriptures were and didn't know how to apply Yahweh's beliefs. But that is not something that's supposed to be a long-standing position. Acts the 10th chapter, we want to read verses 34 to 35. And if it is a long-standing position, then Yahweh is letting us know that is a problem for that person. Acts 10, 34 and 35, let's read it.
Acts chapter 10 and verse 34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, of a truth, I perceive that Elohim is no respecter of persons. Verse 35. But in every nation, he that reverence him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him.
So it says, then Kepha opened, he said, Amar of Emet or truth. I perceive, I'm understanding now that Elohim is not a respecter of persons. So what we're going to find out is that a novice is a respecter of persons, but the person that a novice should respect, number one, is Yahweh, and yield to is Yahweh. But that's off in their respect meter. He said Elohim is not a respecter of person, but now he does respect everyone, no matter what nation they're from, that reverences him, that yields to him, and when they respect and reverence and yield to him, they work righteousness or sadaqah, and then he accepts them. Go to Hebrews, the 5th chapter. Hebrews, the 5th chapter. So we looked at the 3 types of novices, and specifically we're looking at the novice type number 3, Hebrews 10. And this type of novice that delays or alters Yahweh's beliefs in applying them to people is a respecter of people. Hebrews, the 5th chapter. And this novice, who is a respecter of people, rate natural and spiritual family higher or lower than other people. So they're rating people, and they're giving them numbers or they're giving them letters depending on how high they think they should be or not be, or lower according to how they think they should be or not be. So this novice number 3 that's delaying or altering Yahweh's beliefs when applying to them to people, rates people higher or lower than other people. Hebrews 5, 1 read verse 14, Hebrews chapter 5, and let's read verse 14.
Hebrews chapter 5 and verse 14. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
And so this is what's off with this 3rd type of novice that delays or procrastinates or alters Yahweh's belief in applying them to people. It says, strong meat belongs to them that are of full age, who even by reason of use, they're not using Yahweh's judgment, they're not using Yahweh's discernment, they're not using his beliefs and applying them to people in the way that he said, because they're not yielded to Yahweh in order to be able to do that. So by reason of use, they have not had their senses, spiritual senses, exercised to truly discern both good and evil. And the only way that any of us can do that is to yield to Yahweh. Go to Romans, the 15th chapter. Romans, the 15th chapter. So a novice's low rating of people comes out in disrespectful words and actions when they mention people. Romans, the 15th chapter. And I was in a situation years ago where one of my relatives, who was in a big position with the city of Chicago, and he was head of one of the districts, and he had a some kind of affair down on Rush Street, and they met at this cocktail bar. And his daughter and my cousin asked, would I join, the group, the people that were going to be there. And I said, well, sure, I'll stop, after work, and then I'll go home. And what happened was there was a lady that attended, and she was some high political person. And she came, and then she was ready to leave, and my relative offered her a ride in his chauffeur-driven limousine. He asked her, oh, well, can my chauffeur give you a ride? She said, oh, no, I have a way. Then about half an hour later, it was time, for me to go. And so, I hugged my relative and, and his daughter, and then, okay, I'm going to go on and get on the train and go home. And these people, politicians, everyone looked and expected him to offer me a ride. And he didn't. And so I just, after I hugged him, I went on out, and I could tell they were embarrassed for him. But that was a novice move that he did. All right, Romans 15, and we want to read verse 1. Romans chapter 15. Verse 1. So he rated this person higher than me in his natural family. That was a novice move. 15 and 1, let's read.
Romans chapter 15 and verse 1. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves.
So then, this is what Yahweh said, and at that time I was in the truth, so I understood exactly what happened. And I felt bad for the people who were embarrassed for him because they saw a side of him that he thought he was presenting another side. And it says, we then that are strong, especially when we're older than younger people in our family, ought to bear the infirmities of the weak, whether it's talking about a novice that's new to the faith, or whether it's talking about a younger member of the family. We ought to, this is what Yahweh said, bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. So a novice rating people is revelation of cooperation with Yahweh's enemy, seeking to oppress people with unrighteous authority. And so that's what happened. My relative had the authority, but being a novice, he sought to impress the people by offering the political person that he rated higher the chauffeur ride. But then when it was my turn, everybody knew that I'm related to him. He actually did a boo-boo, and he didn't impress them. But that was because he was a respecter of person. But it was a revelation of his cooperation with, not with Yahweh, but with his enemy, seeking to impress people, and he used his authority the wrong way. So let's see what are these two English words where it talks about those that are strong ought to bear the infirmities. What are those infirmities when it's talking about people and talking about them being weak?
Okay. Two English words, the infirmities, are one Greek word as Strong's Exalted Concordance of the Old and New Testaments, number 551. Strong's define the infirmities means from Greek number 770. Meaning a feeling of doubt or hesitation with regard to the morality or proper course of action of an inner voice acting as a guide to the rightness or wrongness of behavior.
All right, so the infirmities is that doubt or hesitation with regard to morality and the proper course of action. In other words, the conscience within as a guide as to what's right or wrong behavior. And everybody in the room knew except the novice. Let's read Romans 15:1 again, and then we're going to look at, okay, we looked at the infirmities, so now we're going to look at the weak. But let's read Romans 15:1 again, please.
Romans chapter 15 and verse 1. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves.
So weak now, a novice rating people is revelation of Yahweh's enemies' manipulation, trying to keep people willing to act and do what a novice wants them to do rather than to yield to Yahweh. So my relative did that to try to keep me in a position of being yielded to him or thinking that I'm lower than. But again, it backfired, and I never mentioned it to him. Never mentioned it to his daughter. So what are these three English words? The weak. All right, we understand the infirmities. All right, to judge a guy, to judge the rightness or wrongness of behavior. Now let's see what it's talking about of the weak.
The three English words of the weak are one Greek word as Strong's Exhaustive Concordance of the Old and New Testaments, number 102. Strong's defines of the weak is from Greek number 1 and Greek number 1415, meaning unable, weak, literally or figuratively, in an accepting manner without active resistance, impossible, could not do, unable to take effective action, helpless or powerless.
So it's talking about somebody that's in a position to where they're kind of at somebody's mercy or haven't done anything wrong to them. And weak, it said literally or figuratively, in its accepting manner, because I understood that it was a possibility when he offered the, the person he rated, higher. And when I got ready to go, I wasn't really expecting to be offered because I, knew him. Not that he's a mean person, but I knew that he rates people higher or lower. Romans 15 and verse 2.
Romans chapter 15 and verse 2. Let every one of us please his neighbor for his good edification.
All right, so if I had acted like a novice, I could have blew him up and fronted him off in front of all those political people. But then guess what? Both of us would have been novices. But what that ended up doing was letting people know that there was something else behind my behavior to just quietly go. And that's what Yah wants. When we yielded to him, he'll show us the way to do things like he wants us to do them. But he said now, we are to please, to not be a novice, please every one of us, please our neighbor for his good to edification. And that's when we bear their infirmities, is to be to edification. So what does that mean, to edification, when we bear the infirmities of the weak?
Now, the English word edification is found in Strong Exhaustive Concordance of the Old and New Testaments, number 3619. Strong's defines edification as architecture, concretely a structure, figuratively emotional support or encouragement, building, and the instruction or improvement of a person morally.
So should my relative have offered me the ride, that would have been emotional support, that would have been building him up and me up, and instruction or improvement of a person morally. That would have brought him up instead of down in the eyes of the, even though he was the head of the department, in the eyes of the people that were watching. Let's read verse 3, Romans chapter 15 and verse 3. But that's why Yah said to bear the infirmities of the weak, once we found out who they are. Let's do it.
Verse 3. For even Mashiach pleased not himself, but, as it is written, the reproaches of them that reproached thee fell on me.
All right, so it says, so this is what Mashiach did when he yielded to the Father. Even as Mashiach, he didn't please himself, but as it is written. Why? Because Mashiach was not a novice. The reproaches of them that reproached thee fell on me. So that's bearing the infirmities of the weak. Go to Hebrews, the 6th chapter. Hebrews, the 6th chapter. A novice respecting and rating people higher or lower is not from yielding to Yahweh. Hebrews, the 6th chapter. That does not come after yielding to Yahweh. Hebrews, the 6th chapter. I'm going to read verse 1. Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 1 reads,
Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 1. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Mashiach, let us go on unto perfection, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works and of faith toward Elohim.
So this novice, novice that rates people higher or lower, and this novice that procrastinates or delays or alters Yahweh's beliefs related to people, they think they can leave the foundation. It says, therefore, leaving the principles of the foundations of the doctrine of Mashiach, what Yahweh and Mashiach said in his word is the standard, is the way things are done. They think they can it says they're going to go on to perfection, they're going to go on to maturity, and not build on the same foundation, laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works, rating people higher or lower, that's a dead work, and of believing, which means yielding to Elohim. So they think that they can build something off of the system that they have and not be yielded to Elohim, and they think they're going to go on to maturity without yielding to Elohim's principles. Go to Ruth, the 3rd chapter. Ruth, the 3rd chapter. So a novice accepts the role of kinsman redeemer when people are rated high. They will do the role of kinsman redeemer when they rate people high. And what my relative did was a kinsman redeemer act. Ruth, the 3rd chapter. And they call that being nice. Ruth chapter 3. I want to read verses 12 to 13. Ruth chapter 3, verses 12 to 13. And let's read it.
Ruth chapter 3, verse 12. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I. Verse 13. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee. As Yahweh liveth, lie down until the morning.
Now you notice now here is Ruth, and this is Boaz talking to her, and so he's just bringing up this kinsman redeemer law that that Yahweh put in motion, and he's saying, well, there's a kinsman that's nearer than I, so the law says that I need to check with him and see if he's going to step in and do the family thing according to Yahweh's law, the kinsman redeemer thing. And And then, meanwhile, as Yahweh liveth, this is the truth that I'm telling you, because I'm yielded to Yahweh, and I'm going to do this thing according to Him, and then I will get back to you. So now let's read what is this kinsman redeemer? What exactly, so we can understand a little bit more about it.
Yahweh's kinsman redeemer is a family relative who helps a weaker relative in need or danger. But this goes beyond mere marriage proposals. This person avenges in the case of a relative being murdered via manslaughter, delivers, rescues, and in many cases redeems property. The role far extends beyond nuptial duties.
All right, so that was just a little bit about what a kinsman redeemer is in a family. In other words, it's like a covering. It's like a protection. It's like a coming together. And it says it's a family relative who helps a weaker relative in need or danger. So now, unlike this other relative, there's another relative that during his lifetime he bought a whole bunch of properties, and when he made out his will, he made sure that all of his brothers and sisters, and if his brothers and sisters passed, he made sure that their children or their children's children got part of the properties. So he did the kinsman redeemer role. Like we just saw, it goes far beyond just, being married. In the case of a relative being murdered, he delivers, he rescues, he redeems property. And so he made sure, and even during his lifetime, his older brother passed, and he gave his older brother his word that he would take care of his family, and he provided, for his widow and their 8 children. So that's the kinsman redeemer role that he stepped into, and he did it. So a novice accepting the role of kinsman redeemer will do it when people are rated high. But I have one relative that did it when they rated somebody high and then rated me low. Then we have an example of one that did it according to what Yahweh said, to where he rated it in spirit and in truth, being a part of the natural family, and did the right thing. But now a novice who steps in that role equates it with being nice. So now the word nice, I found out, is not in the scriptures. So let's see what Google said. What does nice mean according to outside the scriptures, which really, if you're going outside the scriptures, then you can pretty much count that as nothing. But let's just see. So a novice is going off of this definition.
According to verywellminded.com, 6 Ways to Become a Nicer Person by Kendra Cherry, MSED, updated on November 28, 2021. Act with kindness, avoid being overly critical, be honest, be nice to yourself, be open-minded, be polite.
So now this is what this person says, to be nice. But the word nice is not in the scriptures. Go to Hebrews 5th chapter. So for those that are yielded to Yahweh, that truly is to mean nothing. Act with kindness, avoid being overly critical, be honest, be nice to yourself, be open-minded, be polite. And we're going to find out those are just words, and they go back to another definition that says it depends on who's defining what being nice and kind means. Hebrews 5, and we're going to read verse 12. Hebrews chapter 5 and verse 12. Now remember, the word nice is not in the scriptures.
Hebrews chapter 5, verse 12. For the time we ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of Elohim, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat.
So it's talking about novices who procrastinate and who delay and who alter applying Yahweh's beliefs to people. He said, at the time when you ought to be teachers, you ought to be able to not just stand up and teach somebody, but people ought to be able to look at you and understand that you are applying Yahweh's laws, statutes, and commandments to people and yield it to Yahweh, allowing Him to judge and to lead you and guide you and let you know what things mean and when to prolong something and when to cut something off. It said, you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles. We just read before where, and we're going to read that scripture, that this novice thinks they can leave Yahweh's first principles and then go on and do something to Yahweh, not yield it to Yahweh. And they equate that with just being nice. He said, instead of somebody being able to look at you and find out what Yahweh is about, you have need that somebody teach you again the basics of the oracles, the laws of Elohim, and have reverted, become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. And this is a voluntary choice out of procrastination or out of deciding to do things another way unyielded to Yahweh that this type of novice has gotten into. Go to Judges 17, and then we're going to look at where they say outside of the scriptures, going to Judges 17, outside of the scriptures, quote unquote, just being nice is defined as quote unquote being kind. That's outside of the scriptures, because nice is not in the scriptures. Going to Judges 17. We want to see what they say. All right, so just being nice is being kind. Judges 17. So they're using all these words which are up for discussion and open to interpretation by whoever decides that they want to interpret them another way. I was listening to something, and somebody now is calling sodomites, what do they call them? Self-love genders? Self-love gender? Something like that. Trying to make it be something nice. Same gender lovers. Same gender lovers. Rather than sodomite or Gomorrah. All right, we in Judges 17? Okay, so now outside of the scriptures, just being nice is defined as being kind. So now what does a Yahoo search say being kind is? Now, this is outside of the scriptures, and again, we would recommend that you take this as worthless, because you got all these 66 books right here where you can go inside the scriptures and find out what Yah said. 17 and 6, definition of being kind.
According to a Yahoo search, the definition of being kind can mean different things to different people.
Yep, there it is. Mm-hmm.
The meaning is in how you choose to show it.
There it is.
Be it through the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, acceptance, kind gestures, thoughtfulness, the possibilities are entirely up to you. Kindness might look like being helpful or showing empathy. It may mean doing nice things without expecting nice things in return.
Now, how general and vague is that, right? Judges 17 and verse 6. Notice how many times they said it's really up to you, is how you choose. Judges 17 and 6. Let's read it.
Judges chapter 17 and verse 6. In those days there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes.
Now, there it is right there. But there was no physical king in Israel, but guess who was on the throne as king? Yahweh Elohim was king. He said, but in those days, there was no king in Israel, and then what? Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Go to Hebrews, the 6th chapter. But did it make it right in Yahweh's eyes? Hebrews, 6th chapter. So I recall years ago, there was a brother, and he was comparing some people, and he used the words, at least she's nice. In Hebrews 6. So he was in the truth before I was. And Yahweh used him to bring me into the truth. But I found out later what he said about quote unquote nice was a novice talking. Hebrews 6. And I just found out myself that nice is not in the scriptures. And y'all had me studying for this. Hebrews 6, we want to read verse 3. Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 3.
Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 3. And this will we do if Elohim permit.
Yes, this will we do. That is, we will all remain novices. We will be unyielded to Yahweh. We will call ourselves servant in any way we feel like or any way we want. We will be rating people higher or lower. We will be respecting persons. We'll be doing everything a different way. Then he said, this we will do, or we got the tendency to do, if Elohim would permit. Go to Psalms, the 4th chapter. Psalms, the 4th chapter. So Yahweh said a novice will remain a novice if he permitted or gave authorization or consent to do it. So when we started out, we said not a novice. Not if you're going to call yourself being yielded to me. He said not a novice. If you're going to call yourself coming up in the congregation, coming up in the temple, being among Yahweh's people, going out and saying that I'm a child of Yahweh, I'm representing Yahweh, I'm serving Yahweh, I go to this temple or that temple. He said, if he would consent to do that or permit you to do that, he said, no, I'm not going to give my authorization for you to do that. It was Psalms 4th chapter. And so a novice brings the hardship of confusion on people, not yielding to Yahweh, not yielding to Yahweh, and not taking on the kinsman redeemer role. And it leads people to consider Yahweh's enemies' ways as more important than Yahweh's ways. When this novice, procrastinating and hard-headed, doesn't yield to Yahweh, it leads people to consider the enemy's ways as more important than Yahweh's ways. Why? Because a novice not doing that, unyielded, is doing the enemy's ways. Psalms 4, and we want to read verse 2. Psalms chapter 4.
Psalms
and verse 2.
Psalms chapter 4 and verse 2. O ye sons of men, how long will you turn my glory into shame? How long will you love vanity and seek after leasing? Say,
Selah. So here's Yahweh answering the question. All right, novice, how long? Oh, you sons of Adam. Notice he didn't say sons of mine. Like in Genesis, the 6th chapter, he said the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of Adam. Now he's talking about the sons of men of Adam. How long will you turn my kabod, my glory, into shame? Only people that are not yielded to Yahweh and letting Him show them how to do things, how to think, how to act. He said, will turn His glory into shame. How long will you love vanity? Doing things in a useless way. Thinking you can leave behind my principles and then go on to perfection. Or then win somebody to Yahweh. And seek after leasing. Selah. Go to 1 Peter the 2nd chapter. 1 Peter the 2nd chapter. So I have another example of a novice in my family. And something happened to where he has some of his relatives staying in a property, and is allowing them to be evicted and not even telling them about it. Again, it's a novice, not yielded to Yahweh. And making a novice move. But at the same time, this person thinks because they got, some money, then that kind of justifies what they're doing. 1 Peter, 2nd chapter. So the novice who is not new to Yahweh's beliefs, but continues not to yield to His wisdom, refuses, interferes, delays, and inhibits people's deliverance. So they're really working for the enemy. 1 Peter 2 and 23. 1 Peter 2 and 23.
1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 23. Who, when he was reviled not again. When he suffered, he threatened not, but committed himself to Him that judges righteously.
So this is what people who are not a novice, who obey the commandment from Yahweh not to be a novice. It's talking about what Mashiach did, and this is the example for those of us to do. But when he was reviled not again. He didn't try to figure out his own way to come up out of that situation. When he suffered, he didn't threaten. He committed himself to Him that judges righteously. But this novice who refuses to yield to Yahweh will not commit himself or herself to Him that judges righteously, so He can judge through them. Go to Psalms, the 4th chapter. And it brings hardship and confusion on people. Say one thing and then they're looking at you, do another. Psalms 4 and verse 3. What they say, talk a good game. Well, people are smart. They're looking at you. They should be. And you and I should be looking at them more than they're looking at us. And looking at ourselves, whether or not we're yielded to Yahweh. And committing things to Him to judge righteously through us. And we can't get to the point where we don't want to see what He wants us to see. Because then we're interfering with Him helping people. Then we're working for the enemy. Okay, did I say 1 Peter 2? Or Psalms 4?
Yes.
Okay, yes, let's read Psalms 4 and 3.
Psalms chapter 4 and verse 3. But know that YAHH has set apart him that is Elohim for himself. Yah will hear when I call unto him.
So now he wants this novice that's procrastinating and that's unyielded to him. Know that Yahweh has set apart him that is Sadiq or Sadaqah, righteous. He set the person that's righteous apart for himself. And he told you in another place, you're not your own. I bought you. I own you. And then you're not going to yield to me and you're not going to let me judge through you and tell you what to do and tell you when to stop giving people the benefit of the doubt and tell you when to stop using the world's way of just being nice and use this book of scriptures that I gave you so you can deliver some people and help some people. He said you need to know that Yahweh set apart him that is Sadiq for himself. Yahweh will hear when you call unto him. 1 Peter the 2nd chapter. 1 Peter the 2nd chapter. So this non-yielded novice gives people the benefit of the doubt too long. Then holds negative discussions about their motives. Well, stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Listen to what Yahweh is telling you. Give them the benefit of the doubt too long and then talk negatively about their motives and the things that they do. As the saying goes, sounds like you just want to have something to talk about. 1 Peter 2 and 17. 1 Peter chapter 2 and 17.
1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 17. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Reverence Yah. Honor the king.
All right, so here's Yahweh saying, now you honor all men. Don't be rating some higher and rating some lower. And then treating them according to your little chart that you have. Honor all Adam or men. I have, but really now, he said, love the brotherhood. Love Yahweh's people. And you love Yahweh's people by submitting and yielding to Yahweh and letting him help you discern and help you pick up on how you can relate to them and how can you can go in and out among them so you can stay delivered and they can, if they're not delivered, get delivered or be more delivered and more restored. And patting them on the back and acting like everything they do is according to what Yahweh said is not yielding to Yahweh, because Yahweh will let you know exactly how to respond. You love the brotherhood, but Yah has some as we've discussed before, he doesn't have unconditional love. He's got love with conditions, and he told us to yield to him and have that same type of love. One of the worst things we can do to people is to let them be spoiled and let them be in deception, thinking that when they're in disobedience to Yahweh and not yielded to him, that they're in any other place than they are actually in. That's one of the worst things we can do. And try to put blinders on their eyes, even if they're trying to make us think they're in a position when they're not. Somebody take off the rose-colored glasses and have on Yah's glasses, and Yah'll show you how to love on the brotherhood. He said, respect and reverence Elohim. He's number one. And said, honor the king. That's him. Go to Deuteronomy 5th chapter. He said, respect Elohim. He said, hey, commit this person to him. To Yahweh. He judges righteously. He'll tell you how to interact with him. And it don't involve going along and skinning and grinning and shaking their head and acting like they are in line with what Yahweh told them to do. And it don't involve you calling out on it either. Now, if he tells you to, that's different. But he said, I got a better way. Deuteronomy 5th chapter. So a novice unyielded to Yahweh is often heard in public criticizing and disapproving of natural and spiritual family members. You hear them running them down. And I love my family, but what they say, each of our natural family got some with sugar nuts in them, got some nuts in the tree. And I know, we don't do it anymore, but I used to hear, my family running people down. I don't do that anymore. But it used to be when you be in public that you would have tried to protect your family. And what's that thing in the Shemite neighborhood? Don't talk about your mama. Is that playing a dozen? So I think that's playing a dozen. But anyway, used to be people would protect their family in public, especially if it's somebody younger in the family. But a novice unyielded to Yahweh, you hear them in public criticizing and disapproving of natural and spiritual family members. Deuteronomy 5 and verse 28.
Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 28. And Yahweh heard the voice of your words when ye spake unto me. And Yahweh said unto me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people, which they have spoken unto thee. They have well said all that they have spoken.
All right, so now here's Yah. He's looking at his spiritual family, and he heard what they said, and he didn't run them down, but he just said, yeah, they talk good, but I'm not, glossing over, and I'm not running to cash the check just because they said all the money's in the bank. He said, yeah, they said the right words, but I'm the one that judges righteously, so I can see through what they're saying. They think they mean what they're saying, but the evidence shows they don't. So when we yield to Yahweh, Yahweh shows us the evidence. And then we can help people. Go to 1 Peter, the 4th chapter. 1 Peter, the 4th chapter. So, but the novice that we're looking at has developed a spiritual laziness habit. And they will watch people throw rocks, hide their hands, and then not rely on Yahweh to help them judge what that means. Or when different situations surround people, they'll look at it and then won't rely on Yahweh. Commit to Yahweh so he can judge and help them, so they can get into the right frame of mind and say the right words and act the right way and do the right things toward the people to help them. They want to do that spiritual lazy, just be nice. 1 Peter 4 and 17.
1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 17. For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of Elohim. And if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the doctrine of Elohim?
All right, so Some people may say, well, why you got to talk about you a novice? And why you got to talk about, not yielding to Yahweh? And why you got to talk about this type of stuff? It says the time has come that mishpat judgment must. It's not an option. Got to start with the people that standing up calling themselves, representing Yahweh, calling themselves in love with Yahweh, calling themselves obeying Yahweh, calling themselves servants of Yahweh. Judgment must begin at the temple of Elohim. And if it first began at us, so he's looking at you and I first. What shall the end be of them that don't obey? Well, there's people in the temple that's unyielded and not obeying. But he said he's looking at you, and the judgment has to begin there. And he told us in Psalms that he is raising us up so we can judge the earth. Now, how are we not going to be yielded to him now so we can practice judging, so we can help people, and he can use us to help people, and get us out of our own head and our own feelings about how we're supposed to react and what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to relate to people. And just keep giving them a pass, giving them a pass, giving them a pass. Go to Psalms 24. So the novice holds up spiritual laziness as a good thing. See, they figure, oh, well, I'll just be nice. Oh, this doesn't really concern me. Well, I don't really want to, let them know that I saw them throw that rock and then hide their hand. But what is your Father in heaven telling you?